Hi, in this update I'm going to be taking a look at the British Airborne Jeep and trailer and the cut down Morris, which that one's going to be my tow, and this is probably going to be a tow as well. What I've been doing is I've been taking down the metal parts and stripping off any of the extra pieces of metal and flash that are on it. And I've also taken the resin parts and given them a really good wash and scrub in some slightly soapy water, just to make sure there's no residue on there that'll affect the paintwork. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll spray the main bodies in army green and then fill out the details with colours later. But for the bodies and the rest of the parts, I'm going to do them in a, what's it called now? Drake grey colour. And so I'm going to affix them to the stick before I spray them separately. But before I do that, I need to build up the metal soldiers, put their heads in. So I'll be doing that first, and then I'll get to the spray work. So starting with the passengers, I think. I'm going to try and carry on my theme of helmets for rifles and berries for the rest as best I can. So them two are rifles, so they'll definitely have the helmet heads. So I'll do that first. And obviously on these, because they're metal, I'm going to be using my super glue. That's it. And the other rifleman. It's okay though when it's in, but it doesn't sink down so well. I probably could have trimmed a little bit off, but that's not bad. That's in. Right. Well, that gives me no choice anyway, because I'll have the berrymen left for the driver and for the machine gun. That's better. So that's him. As I say, I've took the trims off the others. With the Morris, there's no heads to fix in place, they're already on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these away and get them sprayed up, and then I can put the rest in place, and I'll bring you back. Now that I've managed to get these primed up, as you can see, it's just the base prime that I've done, but I've completed that, ready to be painted up. I've still got the wheels. I have primed them, and the metal fittings, they're all primed, they just need painting up. But what I have jumped ahead and done, let's see if I can show you these. Let's put a bit of light on that. Is that better? Just paint up the figures ready, because obviously that's going to be the biggest job, painting wise. Well, the most detailed anyway. So that's the figures for the Morris. Same again with the Jeep, all primed, just needs painting up. I've primed the wheels and the metal fixings, and again, let's bring them one at a time. I painted up the figures from it. I'm not sure which one I didn't show you, whether it was the driver. Here we go. So the next job on these is to paint up all these metal add-ons and the wheels and everything else, and then I can start doing some, you know, more paint work and weathering on these. So when I've done that, I'll bring you back. Another little project that I've managed to pull in along with this is the parachute canisters. They've now been primed as well, and I'm going to be painting these up. And then in addition to that, I'm going to be painting up my howitzer, because that's been primed now. Get that ready. And then the final little extra is the 6-pounder gun, which again has been primed, but it's been waiting to be painted. So these are going to get pulled in at the same time. So what I've done here is, rather than bringing you along on all the putting it together, I've took some photographs as I've gone along, and I've added on all the fittings and getting things ready, you know, for the final weathering and painting. So here you can see now that the Jeep's got all its wheels on and everything, and now the cut down Morris too. I'll get the men inside them as well, and while I'm at it, I've just started the basic painting on the parachute drops as well. Right, I'll go on to the next stage. Right, so I'm just painting up these canisters as part of this job now, and I've come up with an idea that I thought I really ought to make a tribute to the film and the actual events, and show the canister that's full of berries. So I've decided to cut into one of the ones that I'm doing, and then I've sacrificed a few of the heads that I'd got left to cut the berries off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them in place over the top. Bit fiddly. That's one. Right, so I've glued all the red berries in place, I'm going to just let that set off. I have sprayed it, but I'm going to let that set. So that, I've only done it to that one. I've still got some more painting to do on these other ones as well. And but I'll paint those berries up next. And just to show you where I've got to so far with these, I've put the men in place, started doing the base painting up, and obviously I'm going to be going on to the transfers before I do much more to them. Same with the Jeep. I've done most of the base painting and I'll be applying the transfers. Same with the little Trailman. And then the other thing that I've done is I've just glued the howitzer in place on its platform. Obviously I've got a grass around where I've glued it on. And the same with a 6-pounder gun. That's in place. Now these other two came as part of a big box of old Airfix kits that my brother-in-law gave me. But they didn't match any of the other things in the box because most of the soldiers were 172. I don't know what scale these are, but they're pretty close. So I've just given them a wash. How I'll use them yet, I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd bring them into this project. But I'll just get the berries painted up and get the transfers on, and then I'll bring you back. So I've got the transfers on now, as you can see, and Alexa the alarm is in a bucket of water, so hopefully no more beep beeps. So I've completed the application of the transfers now. So just show you some on the. Let's put a bit of light on that. If that helps. Hope that's a bit better. So I put some of the transfers on the back. I wanted to do this before I press on with much more of the weathering. Because obviously I want it to look like there's some wear on these, which is what I'm going to be looking at now. Oh, the other thing that I did complete was the berry canister for little nod of the head to the film Bridge Too Far. And the others I've just painted up conventionally, really. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a little bit of sponge. Just dip that in the army green from the vehicles as they originally were. Get most of it off on this cloth. And where the transfers are, what I'll do is I just gently dab it like that to make it look like it's scratched in places on the transfers. And you can see that on the star. And what I've done with these, obviously I've sealed them beforehand. So even if I do go over it, I could quickly wipe that off without any fear of damaging the actual transfer. You can see that one a little bit better. So I'm going to do that with all of these transfers that I've put on. And then I'm going to be using a similar technique. Only I'll be using Necromancer Cloak, which is like a very dark grey in Army Painter. And I use that one to indicate chippings and scratching to the surface of the paintwork. Let's do this one first. You see, if you don't do this, the transfers look a little bit too stark, to be honest. It's a little process, but it's definitely worth doing. Right, I'll take another bit of sponge. Really don't want to overdo it, so dab it on a piece of towel or something, because you only want some there where the people he's clamping in. So, there it's going to catch it, you know, where it's flicked things up from the road. And where the climb in, there's going to have some chips there probably. Doesn't need a lot. Just to make it look like it's not fresh off the production line, really. These are this one's definitely going to need a fair few chips. Given the job that it does, you know, as a tow, and the fact that the nature of the way this vehicle was made. There we go. Right, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix up a little bit of this Humbrol weathering powder rust. I'm not going to go overboard with the rust, he said as he tips out about a spoonful. What I'm going to do is just use water on this. I put some cling film over this because I got tired of having to keep washing it out each time. There we go. Right, again, with the rust, you really don't want to be going mad on this, because the vehicles would have been maintained even if they were seeing action. Up in the wheel arches. I know that's where my cars have gone in the past. I'm going to be adding mud to this anyway, so even though it looks quite a lot, it's a lot of it's going to be took back out. Actually spilt a bit on the tyre there. Just wash that off. It's got a good way it's gone into the actual wheel trim. Might duplicate that on the others. Whether you can see any of that. I will include some photos towards the end anyway, but just put it on, you know, subtly on the edges. A bit on the toe hooks, because they'll have been scraped quite a few times. Might even give it a little bit on the howitzer, but not so much. Same on the 6-pounder. There we go. Right, what I'm going to get now is a very old, quite tatty dry brush, and I'm going to use a little bit of this white try and make it a little bit this time. No, still managed to tip out quite a lot. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to mix it in dry with a bit of this dark earth. And this will give it, I'm hoping, a bit of a look of not only that it's kicked up mud or whatever, but it's not the mud that I'm aiming for so much with this, as a little bit of the dust and debris from, you know, the damaged buildings as well, where it's driven through the streets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this on to make it look a bit more you can see that. I will touch these wheels back up a little bit, but just put a bit on there. I'll fix this in place obviously, but I just want to get it where I want it first. I mean, you can use the Umbral decal to fix it, or even I'm sure it'd probably work with the varnish. But as you can see, it doesn't look the shiny Jeep anymore. Do that a bit on the trailer as well. There we go. I will put a little bit on these, but not so much, because obviously they're not moving along the road very much, apart from when they're being dragged into position. So just a suggestion of it underneath. Tiny bit for the blast back. Might look like I'm putting as much on, but I'm not. I'm actually, it's fairly dry now. There's not a lot coming off at all, so it's not so bad. There we go. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that fixed and sealed, and then I'll bring you back. I've fixed the dusting powder in place, and what I'm going to do now, I don't know whether you remember me mentioning these two, I think they're probably Airfix artillery that I came across. I'm not sure that it fits size wise with bolt action, but they're not part of the British Airborne project, so I'll be putting them to one side for now. So they're complete until I can find a use for them. The 6-pounder is complete, but obviously it needs dressing now, and it needs the ground building up, you know, with tufts and things like that, which I'm going to leave until I'm doing all the troops as well. So, you know, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to call that one complete now, and that'll move off into the next phase. Same again with the howitzer. It's just a matter of staging it now and putting on the scenery and the tufts and things. My little parachute markers, I'm just going to give these a wash, and then again they will be complete and ready to use, including the berry one. Just needs a gentle wash, which basically leaves me the Jeep and trailer and the cut off Morris, and I'm going to be looking at them again in a minute. And what I'll be doing now is adding some mud effects as well, but I'm just going to give these a little bit longer for the decal sealant to seal in the dust that I put on. So I'll bring you back when that's complete. The first thing I'm going to do, now that this is dried, is I'm going to add some of the thick mud up underneath the wheels. And for that, I tend to use a really cheap, grotty brush that's been, well, it's spent. So I've just trimmed the end off that to make it a little bit more stubby, which makes it a bit more manageable when I'm putting things on. But just goes to show that even a brush you're throwing out, you can still find another little use for it before it goes. And I'm going to get this up under the wheel arches. I'm not going to leave it too, thick and gloopy. I'm just going to put it in there and flatten it out a bit, because I don't want to look like I'm driving through a really wet battlefield. Just enough that it's dug it up because of the sheer weight of the vehicle. I don't know if there's any real point in painting the bottom of the vehicle, but I think it's just me, I just can't leave it. But I don't think most people bother. I mean, some people base their vehicles. I mean, I've often thought whether I should, but so far I've not. I've just gone with them being, so I can just put them down on any surface. But I can see the benefits of putting them on a base, not only just for the looks, but I mean, take this one for instance. If you wouldn't want to keep putting the trailer on the Jeep all the time, it really isn't that strong metal that it's connected to it with, and I could see that'd be worth putting on a base. But then again, if you did, you wouldn't have the option of using it without the trailer, for a different selection. So I don't know. It's one of them that I've never really kind of decided what's best. I think it's just one of them as well that it's personal choice, isn't it, really? Bring that a little bit closer so you can have a better look. See, I haven't gone mad. It's not, it's not like on a tank where I've, really caked it up. I've just got it into the wheel arches. It could probably stand a little bit more. I might put a tiny bit more in, but not a lot more. Because I will be putting on the splash mud effect. Right. Now I think on the Jeep, I'm going to do this even less, because I'm seeing this mainly travelling along and through the roads. I mean, obviously it will have crossed land as well, but it's certainly not going to have kicked up as much mud as that one has. There we go. You can see that very well. There's just a tiny bit in there that's dried on. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry off a little bit. That's the thick mud. I don't think I'm going to add it to the trailer. Well, if anything, I'll just give it a brush with what's left on this brush, so there ain't very much. There's no wheel arches or anything for it to have actually really fixed itself to it, so just put it on the axle. There we go. Not a lot at all, really. You can barely see it. So that's going to be it for the thick mud. My next one is going to be this Vallejo splash mud. And I'm going to try something a little bit different now, because I normally use a little brush. But I've noticed that sometimes, you know, when I'm doing the flicking process with a brush, it can go in places I don't want it. So I'm hoping if I spread a little bit on this toothbrush, I'll be able to control the flick and keep it round the bottom of the vehicle where I want it. I don't know whether it'll work. It's just something I just thought of when I got it out ready to do. So, and I always keep an old toothbrush or two for different jobs. So, right, I'll let that dry off and then we'll do the splash mud. Right, I've set the Jeep up ready. Let's see if this little project works. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a bit of a brush to just put it onto this first. Don't know how much I'm going to need on for it to flick off effectively. There we go. Can't leave it too long, else it'll be drying on the brush. Ooh, it worked, but it still goes pretty high, so let's get it lower. There we go, look. I don't think that's too bad. A little, when I initially did it, a splash on this wheel here that I'll just tidy that up, but the rest of the splashes are pretty good. They haven't gone too wild. Quite happy with that. Alright. See if there's enough left on it. Yeah, still some coming off. It needs a bit more now. Done it quite well. It's a little bit more controlled than it was when I was just doing it with an ordinary brush. Let's get some more on for this one. There you go. I don't think that looks too bad. Well, let's just get this all cleared up. Right, we're back in a second. Oh, I'm just going to end on a few photos here. As you can see, they're all finished, just waiting for additional basing on these ones. And then the Jeep itself, that's completed. I did just after this just slightly touched up the tyres a little bit because I noticed in the pictures they were, you know, a little bit too heavy with the mud in places. But yeah, they're ready really for varnishing next. There it is with its trailer. And the splash mud come out pretty well in the end. I was quite pleased with it. Although I did find a few little marks here and there on the berries. So I just touched them up as well just to make sure it didn't, you know, look too speckly. But yeah, all in all, it's worked out quite well. I'm sorry it's been a bit of a longer video, but it just seemed to make sense to bring all these things together in one. So hopefully you've found something of use anyway. Well, thanks again for joining me, and do consider giving it a like and even subscribing so you'll know when the next video drops. Thanks again for joining me. Bye for now.